So when you get to that point and you got cap over here and GPWA over here, what choice am I going to make? You know, and I really believe that if I had gone to the cap side, I don't know what would have happened with GPWA, but I guarantee you it wouldn't have been a year or two before I had fundamental philosophical differences, shall we say, with the people at the helm of that company. Yeah. And I most likely would have been fired anyway.
Yeah.
I guarantee you I would have had to sign a non-compete clause that when they fired me, I wouldn't have even been able to work in this industry for a decade.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, as I said,
this wasn't something I wanted to do, was work with cap.
We won't talk about it, but one thing I will say is Brian Cullingworth, Jet Set, he's no longer with us, Ted Lowe, Brian Bailey, and Ian Sims, they decided to forego going to the conference in London, and they came down to my hometown in Bath. And we were in a restaurant one evening, and everybody's phones were pinging left, right, and centre about it all kicking off at the conference in London. Absolutely hilarious. And we're like, what the hell? You know, why didn't we go? Why have we come here?
I was as surprised as anyone. And maybe I shouldn't have been, because I did have reservations about going to that show after we had, I mean, again, if you want to use the analogy I used before about kicking the bull in the balls.
Yeah.
That's essentially what we did, is we kicked the bull in the balls and then walked right into their house like nothing was going on. But at that time, I was an employee of Casino City, GPWA. I was told this is the biggest event and we're going. So I said, okay. Now, I get a lot of credit or blame, depending on which side you're on, about my role in that whole thing about GPWA versus cap. And that's only because I was the front man, right?
Yeah.
But all the research, all the documentation, all that stuff, that wasn't me. I got the information and I reported the information. So, I mean, it's easy to blame the guy that's running his mouth, but in reality, there was a whole team of people behind me. So when I show up in London, though, I'm the guy that's been out in front of the camera actually saying the words that are hurting your business. So, of course, Lou and Warren were not going to be thrilled to see me. I don't know what happened with Stephen, Michael Korfman's son. He was a salesperson for GPWA and APCW at the time. And I saw him, and like you would see somebody that gets arrested with their handcuffs and they got them like in a chicken wing behind their back.
Wow.
I looked over and I saw that going on. I'm like, what the hell? He's being escorted by security. And that's how I found out about it. Something was going on. And as I walked to go find Michael and what's happening, I turn around and there's Lou, God rest his soul, standing there looking at me like he wanted to drive a stake through my heart. And he said, "You came to my show," and I'm paraphrasing and cutting out some of the more colorful language. And I said, "Apparently I did." And he said, "You came to my show, you and me, outside right now."
Wow. I know on the Casino Meister forum, in the archive forums, there is the cap implosion thread on there. And yeah, I might link to it if you want to.
No, it's fine. It's a bit of history. I mean, I had actually thought about doing a video series because we have APCW perspectives. I actually thought about doing a video series called Historic Perspectives. But the effort to put into it would be so tremendous. And the stuff it would bring up, I don't know if people would actually care about it or not. And then as far as it producing anything as far as income, it would be non-existent. So I just haven't done it, honestly. And to move on past the cap thing, I said, okay, let's go outside. And somebody stepped in and said, "No, you're not going to do that." And I said, "Well, he's not, we're not seriously going to fight." And he's like, yeah, that's what he wants. And I turned around and I looked back at him, and I could really see the anger.
Yeah.
And so cooler heads prevailed. and I didn't go outside, thank God. But there's a lot people don't know about that went on behind the scenes that involved, because Lou, of course, passed away.
He did, yeah.
Not long after that, but not before he had spoken with people inside of GPWA and asked us things that even he didn't know about my conversations with other people inside of CAP, because Lou was, I think, really hurt and upset and maybe even offended by the fact that we chose GPWA over CAP.
Yeah.
And I don't think he fully understood why until that conversation. And so before Lou died, we were actually on good terms after that. I just want to make sure people know that. I'm not mad at anyone at CAP. I don't care about the past. It is what it is.
Yeah,
And
everyone's
Lou and I were actually
so long ago
okay.
anyway.
Yeah, well, Lou and I were actually okay. So God rest his soul.
Yeah.
God bless the rest of his family.
Yeah. So I guess APCW present day and This Week in Gambling, which is your own project, yes? Nothing to do with Casino City. They're the two things that you're working on currently at this moment in time.
Yeah. I left APCW in 2012. And what that basically was me going from being a full-time Casino City employee to being a contractor.
Right.
And I did that because I wanted more autonomy to do things that I wanted to do, which when you're part of a company, if I'm your employee, I need to ask permission before I'm involved in this or this or this. When I'm a contractor, I have an agreement that I'm not going to, work for somebody that as a direct competitor.
You're not exclusive,
basically. Obviously, right? But outside of that, I can pretty much do what I like. And so what I wanted to do was start This Week in Gambling, which was originally a news show about what was happening in gambling in America. And I chose that, because after looking at what we had gone through with UIGEA and the fragility of my income, I saw what was going to happen in America back in 2011, 2012. I saw that regulation was not going to be the new gold rush we all wanted it to be.
No,
but there was
going every year. Oh, the US is going to open up and start regulating.
And we thought it was going to be just affiliates, and we were going to be able to make money the same way we did before. And I started to see that wasn't going to happen. It was going to be monopolized by the corporations and the super affiliates, and that people like me were really going to have no place in it. So looking at what I viewed as my strengths, I said, well, how can I simplify things, maximize things, and get back to just enjoying life? And I came up with the philosophy that gaming is supposed to be fun. I mean, with APCW, over the years, the whole video series started over conflict with UIGEA, conflict with NetTeller, and then there was the fighting with CAP, and it was always conflict and anger, and so you get sick of that after a while. And I just remembered how much,
isn't it?
Well, I remembered how much fun I used to have just making those silly videos, doing an American Idol audition or whatever. And I thought that's what this industry was always supposed to be. So focus on the American market, because I know that I can speak to them, and I know it's going to be a profitable market. And if I'm not going to do affiliate marketing, I can at least have some viability if I can produce these videos which get traction. And I can put myself in a position where I can at least survive and still have fun and not worry about regulation shutting me down, because all I'm doing is talking about fun stuff going on in gambling.
And also, I'd imagine having those two roles, it opens up a lot of doors for you in the sense of being able to meet people who work within the industry, etc. Because you have pretty much met anyone that's everyone in iGaming over the years.
Well, yes and no. I mean, honestly, there are times when I feel kind of like I'm being utilized as a tool.
Mhm.
Let's take, for example, someone who I don't mind talking about, because I don't think he really gives a shit about me. That's Calvin Ayre. You might remember that I was invited up to go see Calvin, and I hung out with him, and we went on his yacht, and yada, yada,
Yeah.
yada. And they filmed everything and put the videos out. And if you remember, that was right when CalvinAyre.com was starting out, drinking, gambling, carrying on. And Rebecca Legiro was actually taken or wooed away from Casino City to go over and work with Calvin. And I was excited to go meet him because I lived not far from Vancouver, where one of his homes was at the time. So I drove up there and I met with everyone and we did our thing, and that was great. And then after it got going, I went to some of their parties, and I always tried to go see and talk with Calvin or what, and don't want nothing to do with me. And other people that worked there got to the point where they didn't really need me. They were being successful. They were doing their own video stuff. And now, why deal with JTodd anymore? We don't really need him. We got what we wanted. So
And they've used you and then spat you out once they got what they needed from you.
Absolutely.
Which was exposure at the beginning.
That's the way I feel, whether it's true or not. That's certainly what it appeared. So, I mean, everyone's like, oh, you know, you do video, you must be successful. But there's a flip side to that. And that is, you know, you don't know how much people appreciate you just for, you know, who you are, what you do, and how many people just feel like, oh, I got to suck up to this guy. Or how many people are like, oh, you know what? We can go on and use this guy to our benefit, and then we're done with him. We don't need him anymore. That's fine. And this still goes on today with APCW membership. You'll see where people come on, they join for a quarter, they get their 3 months, and then they leave.
Yeah.
And what I guess they're hoping is that I'll come on, I'll talk about them in the video, and they pay for their quarter membership, and then they bail and they don't use us anymore. And you know, I'm sure that sometimes it appears that way when it's just simple economics, but these are things as human beings that we notice, and we all have egos, some really big, some really fragile. We all have one. But I guess part of my ego looks at that and goes, well, yeah, I mean, I've had some success if you count views on videos, or if you count that somebody at a conference goes, oh, hey, I've seen your videos. That's great. That's nice. Nothing wrong with that. But when you consider what you were making as an affiliate to what you are making now, and you look at how people kind of come in to your life, interact with you, and then leave suddenly, you start to feel like, well, maybe, you know, some of my success is not as successful as you would think.
No. But you know, people who were peers around the time you started out who have made it very successfully as well themselves. I mean, I guess for the average person on this road that I live on at this moment in time, I probably know more millionaires than everyone on this road put together because of the nature of the industry that you work in. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them, but maybe
me either, my friend.
Maybe get there one day.
You can look around to this humble little home.
Well, I'm in. we've got the boiler there, storage cupboards there, so it's like a dream cupboard that I'm in. But there you go.
But it's about contentment, you know.
Absolutely, it's my dream cupboard.
Yes, exactly. People, you know, I talked to my sister. My brother-in-law works in oil and gas, and he's very successful. He makes a lot more than I do, and I'm not jealous of it. I'm happy for the guy. He busts his ass. And you know what? Here's the thing. I told my sister once, because the conversation of money came up. You know, my father passed away last June, and we got our inheritance. So we were talking about finances and money, and you know, the fact that he makes a lot more than I did came up. But I was like, you know, I'm not bitter about that at all.
That's the one thing working in this industry teaches you. When you obviously have the good months or the good years or whatever, you do not begrudge anyone's success. I think jealousy is a really, really bad trait for an individual to have. And we know lots of successful people in this industry and outside, I'm sure. And yeah, good luck to them. If they've made it themselves,
Well,
done. They should be applauded, not envied.
I told my sister, I said, look, your husband works at something I don't want to do. I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
If you offered me the same amount of money, but I had to do what he did, I would pass.
Yeah.
Because I don't enjoy that. I mean, some people, there are people, and I do envy them, who get up, go to a job they don't care about, they do it, and they go home, they have their weekends to themselves, they make good money, they travel, they have their vacations. I can't, I wouldn't enjoy that. I've had jobs that I don't like. I'm the type of person that if I don't enjoy what I do, then I become, bitter, I guess, and I don't enjoy it. And I regret going in, and I'll eventually do a half-assed job and not be successful. So for me, if I look around and go, well, if I really want what they want, what kind of money, if I want the money that they have, what would it take for me to get to go do that? And I've been like, well, I get to set my own schedule, be creative, get out of bed when I want, go to bed when I want, travel when I want. My time is my own. I almost never hear from my boss because he knows that I'm going to do my job responsibly. What would I have to be making in order to trade all of that to get up at 6 a.m. or 5:30, get a shower, drive, pack a lunch, pay for the wear and tear on the car, the travel expenses, answer to this guy, ask for permission to go on vacation. I mean, never get to travel anymore. There's a trade-off, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I look at myself and go, I'm fine doing what I'm doing. I'm making enough to feed myself and the cat, to pay my child support. So, I mean, what is success really? If you just want a monetary value on it, it's going to be different.
No, I agree with you completely there. And I certainly, well, it's 19 years now since I've worked physically for another company in an office, etc. I could not go back to doing that. I really couldn't. I have to say the past 5 years, when I haven't been an affiliate, working with the 2 small teams that I do work with, they've probably been the best years of my working life, probably even better than when I was an affiliate on my own, because at least, even though I'm here physically on my own with the dog all day, I'm interacting with people throughout the day, every day. And you can't, I would just hate it working for a company in an office and, having to conform. I'd rather drive a grocery delivery truck or something, do you know what I mean? Than if I had to do something else.
Well, even before doing what I was doing, I worked a non-traditional job, retail theft. I would work, some days I'd be there at 8 a.m. and be off at 4. Other days I'd go in at like 2 in the afternoon and work till 10 at night. So again, in my days of the week were never the same. So I've never really had, I guess, a traditional job, except if you want to go back to high school and my fast food jobs that I worked, but which I recommend every young person do. Go work those fast food jobs and realize why you need to apply yourself so you don't have to do that for the rest of your life.
This is what I'm trying to tell my son this at the moment. He's in his exam year, so he's got all his exams in May and June coming up. So, not belittling the people that work at those places, but
some people enjoy that.
The majority of the people that do work there are kids subsidizing their student living because they hardly got any income coming in.
People enjoy that, more power to them. But for me, I didn't really enjoy it, and it is labor intensive.
I imagine it's incredibly stressful as well.
Sure. So, I'll just keep making my little videos as long as they let me.
So I did tell you this would go off on a tangent. We're talking about fast food restaurants now. There's just a few more points I'd like to cover with you.
Sure.
The hot potato that is regulation now. We were talking about the UIGEA about half an hour ago or so. And I always thought, haha, the UK is brilliant. We've got brilliant gambling regulator in the UKGC, which were given lots of powers in 2005. Look at Americans, they nanny state, they're not even allowed to bet online. Roll fast forward 15 years, shit. Basically, what's honestly, it's an. I'm GamStopped anyway. I signed up to GamStop about 6-7 years ago because I didn't want to gamble online anymore. It was wasting my time, wasting my money, etc., etc. So I'm part of the self-exclusion scheme, which is brilliant. I think it's a really good thing. And the one in Sweden that they've got, Spellpulse, is really good as well for any Swedish viewers that want to self-exclude. But what the hell is going on with the regulation in the UK? Oh my God, they're bringing in betting limits on slot play, but if you're under 24, it's going to be capped at a lower limit than anyone over 24. They've removed all
Yes.
play from slots. The source of wealth and know your customer checks now. Seriously, the information that they want from you, the UK equivalent of the IRS, the HMRC, don't want as much. Honestly, what's going on? I mean, regulation is a good thing, right? But over-regulation is just killing the industry, and it's pushing players offshore outside the UK. And what happened in America as well, in the US, when the UIGEA came in, and all those operators that left, they all went to the grey casinos that take North America.
They did. So you just want me to expand upon?
Yeah, just I'm sure your views mirror mine to an extent.
The UKGC has gone from being the gold standard to a joke.
Yeah, it's a hold my beer moment, isn't it? It's like they've looked at what the US have done, and they basically said, "Oh, that's nothing."
I don't know what Andrew Rhodes, Andy, as I call him in my videos. I don't know what the hell Andy's doing. I mean, he doesn't.
Still the director of communications for them.
Oh, he's like the whole CEO.
Right.
He runs everything. And he has zero gambling experience. I mean, look at his credentials. He has like a degree in history, and then in philosophy, and then he worked for, I think, the motor vehicles division and like something to do with food, and then he got promoted to head up the UK Gambling Commission. And then just about 6 months ago, they hired like 7 new, what are they called, commissioners. None of them have any gambling experience at all.
Yeah,
this is who's running your gambling commission.
Yeah, but they are finally. It's taken them what 3-4 years. They are finally taking action against those sites which promote non-GamStop casinos. And I'll put a screenshot on the video here of a couple of DMCA takedown notices that they've actually sent to Google. So they are trying to get them removed from the Google.
No, I mean, they have some value. The problem with the UKGC, besides fundamentally not understanding the online side of the industry, and you could argue they don't really understand the land-based side that well, considering they didn't have any practical experience in that arena. Everything they know about it has apparently come from observation or osmosis. But there's, I think, no denying the fact that if the director of the UK Gambling Commission was someone who had a responsible position within a casino at some point, they might have a bit more of appreciation for what can practically be enforced and what cannot. So they do these things that are detrimental to the industry in an effort to protect what, less than 1% of the populace that is the most vocal. So they get tired of listening to 0.05% of the people go on and on about how problem gambling is destroying lives and destroying families, which it does.
It does, yeah.
But the issue is it's completely unfair. It's like saying, okay, well, Bob got drunk and wrecked his car last night. So since drunk driving's a problem, here's what we're going to do. Everyone is going to have their cars They're only going to be able to drive them if they're over 25 years old. If you're over 25 years old, you can drive them on public streets on these days, but no faster than 25 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And we're doing that not because you did anything, but because Bob, 200 miles that way, acted irresponsibly, and there was a problem and someone was killed. So now everyone's going to be punished for this.
Yeah, I mean, they have introduced some very good measures, quite rightly so. The biggest one for me, with my player hat on, removing the reverse withdrawal, which casinos always used to call a facility. No, it was a facility for them to get their money back without having to pay it out. Removing that was good. Obviously, ensuring that all regulated operators now offer you deposit limits and loss limits, which I think is a really good thing. But the anti-money laundering side of it is just absolutely nuts. It's nobody's right to know what I spend my money on as a private individual, let alone the bloody casino.
Within a certain degree, yes, you are fundamentally correct. I mean, there is some argument about spending money. If you're spending your money on legal activities, it's none of anyone's business. I mean, you kind of open a door when you say how I spend my money is my own business, but I can't, in America at least, I can't use it to buy crack cocaine. That's it. I can't use it to get a hooker. That's illegal. Whatever else. So there, but in the practical sense that we're trying to apply this to, if you're spending your money on a legal activity, if I want to go see a movie, it's not the government's business what movie I see. Why do they want to know? So if I'm taking that money and spending it on a movie or spending it on slots, it's not their business. You are correct. There's no one looking over my shoulder if I go to my casino here. There's no one asking me at the ATM if I've got enough money in the bank before I would play.
You and I could walk into my nearest town, Bristol. We could walk into any one of the casinos in Bristol or London or whatever. Since they removed the cooling off period back in 2005, anyone can walk in off the street, doesn't have to be a member. The only thing is that if you win over £1,000 or £1,500, you need to show some ID. Big deal.
Sure. I mean, I have no problem with any of that. And see, here's the thing is the UKGC and other regulators do good. I'm not saying we don't need regulators. What I'm saying is that what they're doing that's good, that's what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
What they get into trouble with me for, and I say in trouble because I'm not their daddy, what I admonish them for and what I criticize them for is when they go to the point that they start their act, I hate to use the word detrimental again, but it is. You get, I mean, when you're sharpening a knife or whatever, you get to a point where it's really sharp. Can you over sharpen it? Can you just keep going and going where you just take off metal and it's not doing any good anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. And I think that's kind of what the UKGC does. They're so reactionary because I've said it before. I think they're so concerned about keeping their jobs and the appearance that they're doing their jobs that, like the Advertising Standards Authority does the same thing. Anyone complains about anything, they just pull the ad down. It doesn't make any difference if they were wrong or right. It's just somebody complained. And so our process is we looked at it, we upheld the complaint, and we pulled it down. Yeah. Is that just easier than taking a stand? Is that easier than trying to go against these people who don't like gambling and are so full of spite and anger towards us that they cause all these headaches and problems in social media and to some degree mainstream media being critical of us? And then if they're critical of us, what happens if you got a political position and the criticism grows and grows, then the government comes in and says, okay, to satisfy the criticism, we'll just, pull this guy out and put a new one in, and this guy's going to be changed and listen to the people. That's politics, right?
Yeah.
So when you have that kind of position as the UK, heading up the UK Gambling Commission, what's your response then if there's public outcry or backlash, or there's a vocal segment, no matter how small they are, that's getting all the headlines?
Yeah. I mean, what they should do is they should really promote more of the blocking software companies such as Bet Blocker, who we spoke to a few weeks ago, Duncan, who founded Bet Blocker, and there's other ones such as Gamban, and you can even go outside iGaming space. The oldest one probably is NetNanny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Blocking software. If you're an addict, like with anything, whether it be gambling, drinking, drugs, whatever, you've got a problem. Yeah,
Yes.
an addiction, and it's a health issue, a
Yes.
mental health
Problems
issue.
in here.
It's a mental health issue, and it needs to be treated. Now, in terms of the best first thing I would do if I was gambling too much, in a moment of sanity where I haven't got the urge to gamble, any internet-enabled device I would install something like Gamban, NetNanny, or BetBlocker on for starters. Sign up to the self-exclusion services. But instead, the UKGC take a massive mallet to smash a peanut or a walnut, and they go, right, no, we'll remove autoplay. When I play slots, I like autoplay. I can't use it now. If I wasn't GamStop and I was playing at a UK online casino, I wouldn't be able to use autoplay. And soon, if I hit a big win, how I used to play, I would start off with relatively small bets, but if I hit a big win, I would go, right, well, this is my session. I've deposited £50 or £100 or whatever. I'm prepared to lose that. I've just won big. Right, I want to up my stake to like £5 a spin or something like that. Soon, won't be able to do that. And it's just madness. It really is.
The problem is, if you treat what the UKGC is doing, in my opinion, is they're treating the end result without treating the root cause.
Yeah.
Gambling addiction, as you pointed out, is an addiction like any other, where its roots are in your head. And so what the UKGC does is say, well, if you're obese, we're going to take this plate of food away from you, and you're not going to get to eat the Twinkies anymore. I actually talked about this in a video a few weeks ago. And if you're an alcoholic, we're going to take away this bottle of liquor, so you can't drink anymore. The problem is the obese person is still going to be hungry, and if they can't get the Twinkies or the cupcakes, they're going to go eat, a piece of pie or whatever. Yeah. And the alcoholic, if there's nothing else left in the house and they're desperate, they're going to drink a bottle of mouthwash.
Yeah.
If they have.
Yeah.
Because the problem is not, on the exterior. The problem is what's going on between their ears. And until the UKGC addresses that, what they're doing is going around trying to put out a forest fire with a shovel and dirt, right? They're going around and stomping this out, and then there's another one, they go stomp that one out. But they're not treating the fact that the fire is, that where, the root cause where the fire is coming from. You go and you address that.
Do you think the growth of online streaming has fueled the fire to a certain extent? Because I honestly do not understand how I can in a physical casino understand why people watch somebody playing a slot machine or a game of poker or whatever, but watching on YouTube somebody playing a slot game and making out false enthusiasm, etc., I don't get that. But these streamers are betting with lots of money. A lot of it's fake money, supposedly. They get a lot of viewers, and certainly they get the most views in terms of online gambling content on YouTube or wherever they are now, because I think a lot of them have moved off YouTube, haven't they? But do you think with their really irresponsible bets that some of them do, and the thumbnails that they do for their videos to entice people in, I can think of one particular one that does the cartoon eyes that come out of the face looking at the screen away. Do you think they have kind of fueled the lobbying crowd, which has made the UKGC take this massive mallet to the walnut that is regulation and bringing in these maximum bet limits, etc.? Or do you think that's a completely separate issue on its?
I think it's separate. And the reason is, I don't think the UKGC gives a damn about what's going on YouTube. I think like I said before, they're reactionary.
Mhm.
And so they focus on what's right in front of them. I don't think they're looking down the road, honestly. It doesn't appear that they are. Everything they deals with right here, right now. What are the complaints? Let's bring them in, let's get the feedback, and let's address these things. But I haven't seen anything from them that suggests, oh, we're looking 2, 3, 4 years down the road with AI and digital currency, and we're already starting to plan for things. It doesn't seem like that's what's happening. So as far as them watching a YouTube video and reacting to it, they certainly could, but I haven't seen them take or even raise an eyebrow or make a vague reference to people doing those types of videos. Now, somebody was
Are you aware that they're now approaching affiliate webmasters if, in their view, the said affiliate webmasters are deemed to be promoting crypto casinos to UK residents? Are you aware that they're doing that now? That they're actually
no, but it doesn't surprise me.
they are.
What may
I
surprise
know
some
of two
people,
individuals. That
what may surprise some people is that when I mean, I eat, breathe, and sleep this industry for so long.
Yeah.
So sometimes when, I get to a point like today, after I get off with you, I'm not thinking about anything to do with online gambling or gambling in general, probably until Sunday night when I start planning the next episode of This Week in Gambling.
Yeah.
And so right now, point being, we're at a stage in this industry where there's so many people, everyone has access to video, everyone knows what online gambling is now. People are putting out a lot of content. So it's just impossible to keep up with everything. But no, I did not know that they were actually encouraging people with the crypto stuff. I did know that there were webmasters out there encouraging or building websites to bypass GameStop and the other things, which I think is, probably the most despicable thing.
Yeah, that's another issue, and I completely agree with that they're finally reacting to that. They've not been proactive. They're reacting to it about 10 years after the horse bolted out the doors, but at least they are actually doing something now. But no, I know of two individual webmasters who, one is certainly not targeting crypto casinos at UK players, and another one is a streamer who I believe is again not also targeting UK players, but they are promoting these crypto casinos. And the Gambling Commission, Jack Turley, I might have to edit that out, I don't know. Jack Turley has contacted these individuals. So it does seem that they are actually now putting some teeth with their bite, because it does seem like they are actually now doing something.
No, I'm fairly certain. I know they're going to do something. The question is not whether or not the UKGC is going to take action. The question is their action warranted and an appropriate response to the situation? And is it going to do any good, or is it going to hurt people in the long run? And personally, seeing what they're doing with some of these things, I can't see as how that's going to have, number one, the positive effect they're looking for, and two, have anything but a negative effect on our industry. Take deposit limits and bet limits and speed of play. So you can't put as much in, you can't bet as much of the amount, and you have to slow your bets down. The person who is playing $100 a spin on slots, is that going to stop them from gambling? Maybe. They're going to have, either they're not going to get the same thrill that they were getting, so they're going to go to a casino, or they're going to look for an alternative outlet for what the oxytocin or whatever they're getting from spinning that wheel at $100 a spin. Or they're just going to sit there, and instead of doing one spin for 100, they'll play 10 times as long and bet as much as they can. Or they'll move to an offshore site.
Yeah.
So from that vantage point, you got the player that can afford to pay that and wants to, because maybe they're exorbitantly rich, and that's where they get, maybe playing $2 a spin doesn't do anything for them.
Yeah.
If that's the case, you're just going to lose their business. And you haven't stopped an addict. All you've done is take a player who is generating a certain amount of money, who's going to be spending that money on something else anyway, moving to another site or moving to another industry, finding a new way a new outlet for their needs. From an addict's standpoint, like I said, if you don't have a bottle of liquor, you'll go drink the mouthwash. So again, you're not going to stop their behavior. You're just going to move it to a new location because you're not dealing with the fundamental cause, the fundamental root of what gambling addiction is.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
players are going offshore to offshore operators to get their
I
fix or.
I actually studied this a little bit because being in this industry, I never want it to appear like we're calloused or uncaring toward people that have legitimate gambling addictions. But as part of that, I was studying the addiction process itself. And I came across this study on men who were addicted to pornography. And here's what's interesting is that when they hooked their brains up and they showed them pornography and they hooked their brains up and they did a variety of tasks, what they found was when they looked at pornography, the same triggers went off in their brain, in men's brains, that are associated with acceptance and love that they get from a relationship. That's fascinating to me because what it suggests is that these men aren't really sexually deviant. Perhaps they're lonely or they're not getting that soulful, meaningful, emotional connection with their significant other, and that somehow pornography fills, without them even realizing it, fills a little bit of that role in their life. No, I'm not condoning people looking at pornography. You can look at it and do whatever you want. You're in the privacy of your own home. But
here in the UK, you'll need to register to do that, seriously.
Well, I mean, if
so you have to go on a national database if you want to look at porn.
I can think of a few people.
See, we're holding that beer and we're pouring lots of beer.
Yeah. Well, the point being is that with all addiction, there's an underlying psychological complexity in place that creates this compulsion or this need. And it's easy with like cigarettes because we know what it causes an addiction, a chemical thing. But I really think gambling and pornography and things like of that nature, which are in the mind, I believe the chemicals are involved as well. We just can't see them. It's not as obvious. And I'm not a psychiatrist, so. But, addiction is something so much more vastly complex than simply, oh, let's slow down the speed with which we play slot machines. That'll stop them. It's
just ruining the game for the vast majority of people that treat it as a form of entertainment, can control and budget what they spend on it, and do not have an issue with being addicted.
Right, but those people are the same people who will be punished because of the mental health problems of less than 1% of the population. So that's my problem with some of the action that the UKGC has taken. It's not
prohibition didn't work, did it? In the States when they brought it in.
Well, remember the whole war on drugs. When did that start? The 70s, 80s? That's been a raging success, right?
Well, look at most states now in the US. You can smoke weed if you want to, which they've finally woken up and realised.
Well, I've got my vape pen right over there.
Yeah.
But you know what? I have enough control over myself that during the day when I need to work, I'm not hitting the pipe, right? It has its place. It has its purpose. At night, sometimes I have trouble sleeping based on, personal stuff.
Yeah.
But I will occasionally, it helps me relax. What it does is it not only helps me relax, it helps my brain stop racing. Because I have a tendency to lay down at night and my brain and I lay there for hours. When I take some cannabis, my brain stops racing, I can relax and I can sleep. Point being that it's over there and it has its moment and I use it responsibly. Not everyone can, but that doesn't mean that because you can't responsibly use it, that I have to stop. Well, why do I have to stop? I haven't done anything. So
I'd have to say as well, now we're talking about cannabis, isn't that amazing? I have to say it's probably, well, it is. It's a much safer drug than alcohol because like what you say, you use it for to help you go to sleep. how many people stoned do you see having fights? With alcohol, you go out on a Friday or Saturday night, any town in this country, and there will be fights left, right, and
Yes,
centre.
and
And it's
I
all
will
fueled
say,
by booze.
I will say this about my cannabis use. I know that I mentioned earlier that I'm a man of faith, and that's true. I will go to church and have a relationship with my creator, but I know some people out there probably think that's hypocritical. I disagree. I see no reason why that is treated with the disdain that it is treated with. But I will say this, that I never touched marijuana while it was illegal.
Mhm.
Washington State legalized it, and I have ulcerative colitis, which is an inflammatory autoimmune disease. So when I went through my divorce and I started drinking a lot. A lot of guys do that. We have a tendency to be self-destructive when things like that happen. It's an escape. Again, that could go back to how some people get addicted. I wasn't addicted to alcohol, but I would say that I certainly needed it in the evening just to get to sleep. And it started to give me the the spare tire here.
Yeah.
And I knew that my health was still not benefiting from that. So I asked my doctor, that was, my ulcerative colitis doctor. I said, hey, I was thinking about making the switch. And he encouraged me. He was like, oh gosh, yes, that would be so much better for you, because alcohol irritates and inflames and exasperates your condition, whereas cannabis does none of that. So for me, making the switch meant that I was moving away from alcohol, which again, I agree with you, is far more dangerous drug, in my opinion, than cannabis is. And so I made that switch. But to bring it back full circle, whether it's alcohol or cannabis or gambling, the vast majority of people can handle it responsibly.
Yeah.
And it's simply not fair. We don't live in a society where you punish the vast majority of people for the sins of a few. And I hate to even use the term sins, because I don't think addiction is a choice. It's just something
It's not a choice.
brain that
No.
it's hardwired in there. Maybe you had some trauma or what. I don't know. I'm not your judge. But addicts and people with gambling problems are not good for our industry. People that cater to them shouldn't be working in our industry.
No,
And so
absolutely.
that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay, lastly, because we're running on for nearly 2 hours, I told you it'd be long.
Wow.
So thank you. I really do appreciate this. Thank you. This is brilliant. I hope it has recorded. That would be hilarious if it hadn't.
Oh, yeah, I'd laugh about that a lot.
Lastly, acquisitions and mergers, both at a business operate business to business level, and also B2C level, i.e. affiliates buying out other affiliates, etc. How has that affected the iGaming affiliate sector in your view, when you've got the likes of Catena Media with all their millions listed on the Swedish Stockholm Stock Exchange, buying lots of sites, and then they recently offloaded, didn't they? They offloaded Ask Gamblers to another one who used to be an operator, but is now an affiliate in Gaming Innovation Group. What's your view on them? And do you think this is part of the industry actually growing up and becoming an adult now that we've got the corporate seat types involved in the industry as affiliates themselves rather than just operators? And another question on there, how hard do you think this is now for like what we were back in the day 20 years ago starting out? How hard do you think it's virtually impossible for one man, one woman setups to actually make a success as a gambling affiliate?
It's impossible.
It is.
For a one-man operation. Yeah, I would. Well, nothing's impossible, but I would say the odds of being successful are so phenomenally small.
You need deep
you can't compete. You can't when you're an individual going against a corporation with vastly more resources than you can't compete with them as far as producing content. You can't compete with them as far as building good websites that are interactive. You can't compete with them from an SEO perspective. You can't compete with them from an advertising spend perspective. The only thing that you have going for you, which this is part of the reason I think why APCW and Twig have, are able to survive, is that you have an element that you can offer that they can't, which is your individualism, your creativity, your personality, which is why we see, even in mainstream society, we see people like Joe Rogan, who has a podcast, who people love and is very influential and very powerful, even though he's not technically in the pocket of any corporation, or he's not on a mainstream media outlet. But the influencers are the exception to the rule. And I guess if I want to go back and look at when I first started out, I guess what I was doing was influencing without even realizing what I was doing, and there wasn't even a term for it back then. But since that time, the industry has grown so much that I don't even consider myself an influencer anymore. Maybe to a small degree for the online affiliate marketing industry. So a niche inside a niche inside a niche. Maybe in there, I have some degree of an influence position. But I go to land-based shows, nobody knows who the hell I am. Maybe one person out of the whole 10,000 people will be like, oh yeah, I know who that is. But I go to these land-based shows, I can walk around in complete anonymity. Nobody knows. So we're in a society, yes, you're right that it is part of just a maturing of the industry. It is a growing, that this was just naturally going to happen. That anytime there's something that's very profitable, you're going to see people come in that go, well, look, these little mom and pop shops are out here doing this. Let's a Walmart, because if we're bigger and we have the more resources, we can buy things for cheaper, undercut them, and as we undercut them, more people will come, and as they go out of business, more people will come, and it just snowballs, right? And that's what we're seeing in online gambling. There's an industry that has a lot of, it's a non-tangible, consumable that people want to buy repeatedly. I mean, that's just the formula for wealth, right? So if a corporation comes in and says, well, look who we're competing against, we can just, bulldoze these people. That's what they're going to do, because business is about survival. And if you put your competitor out of business, so be it. I mean, we kind of come full circle back to what Cap was doing back in the day. You guess you could argue that they were just ahead of the curve. They were
I think they were, weren't they? To be fair,
they were the ones that were like, we need to get in here and monopolize this now and get it done. So at this point, affiliate marketing is so amalgamized with other things. There's very few just pure portals left, and the ones that aren't necessarily your big time. I mean, there's very few Brian Baileys. There's very few casino micros, right? So, and even him, you can point to Brian and say, well, he's an individual webmaster, and then we can say, well, no, not really. He's kind of like a company that
he's got a small team of people that work for him.
Yes.
So he's not, since when did he take off Max? 2007. He's had staff. So he's not a one-man band anymore. Hasn't been for
he's not.
years.
No, he's not. So yeah, I mean, I really, again, going back to This Week in Gambling, part of the reason that This Week in Gambling was started was because I knew starting over from scratch as an affiliate marketer, just building a portal site was never going to work, especially where I lived. I was going to have to build it secretly and hide my identity. But that's very difficult.
You don't need that.
But there's the stress factor of wondering if they do find out that it's me, they're not going to have any mercy on me, right? So I just decided that wasn't, given everything involved, that really wasn't worth it. Now, there'll still be some banners and stuff on my site, and maybe I can make a little bit of residual, a few $100 here or there. But as far as relying on it as an income, like we did when we were starting out, as an individual, I just don't see how it's really possible anymore.
Yeah, it's a case of having to evolve and move with the industry. It's certainly, there's absolutely no way I would even consider doing something on my own. Now
Yeah.
it's just, and that's with the few people that I do know within the industry and contacts that I've made over the past 20 years. It would still be too difficult, because unless you've got huge deep pockets with a lot of money in both of them, then you're not going to get anywhere, are you? Unfortunately.
No.
So, last question: how does the industry compare from now to when you started out? Is it more fun? I'm guessing not.
No, I would say it's not as much fun, just because when I was an affiliate and things were really good, I had a schedule. I would work my ass off during, the fall, September, October, November, December. That's when the kids went back to school. I dove into any changes I wanted to make on the websites, putting up new programs, working on optimization, anything else I wanted to do. And then, mid-December, I just take off, be done. And then mid-January, I'd go back to work, do the same thing, January, February, March. And then we had the casino affiliate convention in the fall, in September in Las Vegas. We had the other casino affiliate convention in the spring, usually April or May in Amsterdam. And so what I would do is that after Amsterdam, I'd have all these ideas. I'd go home and write them all down, and then I would just be done for the summer. About middle of May, I just shut everything. Now I'd go on and check my stats and do general maintenance and updates. But as far as really working, I'd just take the summer off. We'd travel, go to Disneyland, or go see my family in Texas, whatever. And so I had all this money coming in. I just do whatever I wanted and take summers off. So yeah, it was a lot more fun back then.
I know. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? I wish I was more frugal back in the day, but
well, these days, I mean, I'm pretty much producing and releasing a video pretty much every day.
Wow.
Whether it's for APCW or an interview I did with them, or whether it's an online game review or an episode of This Week in Gambling, there's usually something going out every day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes even on the weekends. And that's just the nature of how things have changed. People want
a lot of work.
Content, they want content all the time.
Yeah. What's interesting as well, I know that game studios now, because it's particularly the smaller ones, they want exposure on sites, but they are now realizing as well that video content is what people consume these days. That or podcasts. If I'm driving my car on a long distance somewhere, I always put a podcast on normally. Or if I'm trying to sleep and I can't sleep, I put my headphones in and put a podcast, and literally within 5 minutes I'm asleep.
This Week in Gambling, actually, I'm working on something right now with a smaller game studio, where they came to me and they wanted me to produce video reviews for them, which I was already doing for This Week in Gambling. And I said, I'll be happy to do that. And as a side, I'll actually produce them and for Casino City as well. And they were pleased as punch. They just sent me the material, and
seriously, they're craving the exposure. The smaller studios in particular, and that's how, if you look at the screen time on your phone each week, it's pretty much YouTube or Twitter for me. What I use my phone for, or Spotify when I'm walking the dog. But honestly, it's been great. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you talking to me.